Hello YouTube. I want to make a video. I haven't made one in a while, and I'm surprised, but also I appreciate the people who follow these videos and engage in discussion with me, and it's been a cool experience. So I welcome it, and I love discussion and disagreement. So please always tell me when I'm wrong or dumb or both. I wanted to make this video because I rewatched a video that I had made called Unschooling versus Public Schooling, and yeah, I just was noticing the ideas that I had in that video, and I just wanted to kind of update you as to where I'm at in my philosophical journey now. And I've had some really big um, experiences and convictions, and I wanted to share those. So. What I've noticed along my path, my quest towards truth, is early on in like first of all, I lived a lot of my life with I just didn't care about the pursuit of truth. I wanted to live and experience and to um, indulge in the flesh, if you will, and I partied hard and I didn't really ask questions. I didn't really seek truth. Thought I had the whole world figured out, especially when I was young. I knew everything, and I wasn't interested in questions of how do we get here, why are we here, purpose, how the world works, things like that. But when I did start that intellectual journey, when I started to be plagued by these big, like my existential crisis, if you will, where I was like, okay, like we're here, and it's not over like I thought it would be, and now I'm more responsible, and I have to figure out why we're here and what we do and the purpose and things like that. When I started that journey, I went through some really big changes right away. So I was a statist at the beginning, and I was like voting for Obama and out like cheering with you know all the political people, and then I changed into like a philosophical anarchist. I was given eyes to see that like whoa, statism sucks, and we can do things way better, like through voluntary interaction we can reach goals and not hurt people and marginalize people, and there won't be injustice. And so I thought, man, like statism is really bad and like voluntarism is really cool, and I should really preach this message of voluntarism. But then I moved on from that, and I said, not that I'm still a voluntarist, but I started to realize I'm not at the root of the problem yet. I'm at a tree branch. I'm down this, I'm noticing a symptom, but I'm not attacking the real cause of the problem. And it'd be wiser to spend my time figuring the cause out, right, than focusing on the proximate cause. If I can find the ultimate cause, that will be a wiser use of time. So on my path, I stumbled onto peaceful parenting and unschooling, and so naturally, we are products. It seems that we are products of how we were raised. Kids that are raised in healthy, loving environments end up uh, not having the same kinds of problems as those kids who are raised in areas of neglect or abuse, or we can go really extreme with like their physical needs aren't being met. So it seemed natural to focus on the family. And I reached this conclusion that unschooling is the solution, because unschoolers seem to recognize our need for, as children, to be respected, to be treated as individuals, and all these things. So I thought, man, again, like I'm off of anarchy and market anarchy. I'm going to stop telling people that they ought to keep their hands to themselves and not tax and not go to war, because that seems like you can't teach old dogs new tricks or something. Like, I'm wasting my time trying to convince adults to act like humanely. So then I thought, man, if I could spend my time helping parents realize the beauty in loving their kids in a particular way, namely as the unschoolers see the world, then I'll be able to solve more problems, and the next generation of kids might, you know, solve a lot of these social problems that we see. But again, I realized that I was just on the branch still. I hadn't made it to the root yet. And so early in my journey, in my intellectual journey, I had some radical changes. Like I said, I became an anarchist from a statist. I also went from being a atheist, outspoken atheist, a Christian persecutor, to a Christian. God started working in my life in really like hard to ignore ways, and I started having to really think, okay, is this stuff real? Because my whole life it all seemed like such a fairy tale. I couldn't understand how people could believe such a ridiculous thing until I started to believe it. And not just started to believe it, but started to experience it. And then it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Can I really let the Bible be like the authority in my life? Can I do something like that? And yes, I totally could, and it actually set me free in so many ways. So I won't share my whole testimony, but it is a story of grace, and God has just worked with me and been so patient with me and shown me things that I probably don't deserve, and has shown me love through His people in ways that I just can't speak highly of enough about. Just awesome, awesome ways, and the church has rallied around me, and I've been introduced to real Christians. Most of my life I saw the Pharisees. I saw the people who flew the Christian flag but never followed Jesus. But when you actually meet people who follow Jesus, it's like, whoa, of course this is how we ought to live. Like, this is the most beautiful, obviously right way that we ought to exist. So again, going back to, I was proselytizing for unschooling, and I was just thinking, if I can get enough people to unschool, we're going to solve these problems in society. And I still love unschooling. I think it's awesome. But I don't think that that's the real issue. I think the real issue is, at our root, at our core, we are at odds with our Creator. We are raging against the infinitely good being who created us. And He created us to run on the best stuff in the universe, Himself. If you're an infinitely good being, nothing is more good than you. It's not a conceited thing or an arrogant thing to want people to glorify and worship you, if that's the exact best thing for their souls, right? So God is not this kind of strange egomaniac. He is the most loving, the most gracious being in existence. So I started to realize, man, I'm meeting all these Christian families, and they're not really anarchists necessarily. They're very open to the ideas. They see no reason. They're not really, their dog is not in that fight. They're like apolitical. They are just Christians. They follow Jesus. They talk about Jesus all the time. They love people all the time. They submit to their authorities. So that was different. Like, the anarchists that I met, they were really like unhappy people. They were like raging all the time against the man. Like, oh, the man sucks, and I'm going to bring down the system. And they weren't very successful. I just noticed that, like, in their mission, they weren't very successful. They weren't very successful organizing or even supporting each other. Like, the libertarian communities and the voluntarist communities weren't very good at, like, rallying around each other. So the fruit that they bared, just didn't line up with the philosophy that corresponded to truth. Because to me, truth, real truth, leads to harmony, leads to a beautiful existence. And the anarchist life, and like the people who are just anarchists, like that is their identity. Like, I'm an anarchist. Those people didn't have that fruit that lined up with real truth. Now, I'm still a philosophical anarchist, and I still support unschooling. I support a lot of different forms of education. But the truth is, like, when people ask me, I'm a Christian. Like, that's what I am. That's my identity. My identity comes from Christ alone. I think some of the other philosophies kind of follow from being a Christian, right? Like, I don't think you can be like pro-war, especially like aggressive war and non-self-defense war. I don't think you can legitimately do that if you're always looking to our Master. If we're always looking to our Lord and how He would have done things, I think it's really hard to justify a pro-aggressive war under the guise of Christianity. So, yeah, so I think being a Christian implies certain things, but that's where my identity is. And the people who I've met whose identity is there, they have a life of harmony, despite their circumstances, in spite of their circumstances, right? I mean, no matter what they're going through, their family members are dying or getting diagnosed with cancer, or there's just so many things being thrown in their world, and they have an unshakable foundation in Jesus. They have an unshakable peace and wisdom and love and joy emanating from them. So their fruit lines up with the truth, right? Because the truth, again, I would expect it to correspond to harmony. I would expect that if you embrace the truth, you will be set free. Those things that make sense to me. Like, I don't think the truth would lead to like a state of like anxiety and unrest and anger. It seems like it'd be the exact opposite. The truth would get rid of those things. So that's why one of the most convincing proofs of Christianity is looking at the Christian fruit from a real church, from people who really follow Jesus. Um, and recently I had an atheist friend. I was talking to him. I love this guy very much. And I was talking to him, and something came to my heart. Like, he is very intellectual, extremely good at arguing. He's a lawyer. And I could engage with him. Like, God is the creator of rationality and reason and logic. So it's not that I think Christian, especially in apologetics, I don't think Christians should be afraid to engage in those kinds of discussions. I don't think we have anything to hide from historically or uh, philosophically. I think our arguments hold up and they make the most sense because they are true, and overall the truth tends to win. But I didn't feel like I felt different in this discussion with him recently, where I wasn't threatened at all by his worldview. And the way I explained it to myself and later to him was, when you're on the path and you've been traveling down it, you can't be discouraged by somebody who's off the path trying to convince you the path doesn't exist. Right? You're on the path. You're walking down it. You're seeing the fruit in your life. You're seeing things happen that are divine. You're experiencing God. He's pulling you down the path. And then you have somebody off the path going, "Hey man, the path doesn't exist." But like you can't like, they can never knock you off the path because you're experiencing the path. There's nothing like that. So that's what kept coming to my heart is I wanted this person to know God so much, but I realized I'm not going to try to sell you God. I'm just going to tell you my experiences, and I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray that God shakes you right out of your rebellious state, brings you to repentance, brings you to the cross, and says, "Hey, that's your creator. This is the story of grace. Start to learn more about it and start to fall in love with me. Start to fall in love with Jesus." So, so yeah, I just think a lot of times Christians, we will engage and we will argue, and I wonder if we actually do more harm for the cause. And I think we probably could do more good just by loving on people and supporting them, and sometimes, like when I say supporting them, like in their physical needs and their emotional needs, and then a lot of times that means telling them the truth, which is, hey, Romans 1 tells us, you know God exists, and you suppress the truth because you love unrighteousness. And I was there too. Right? The difference between a Christian and a non-Christian is not that a Christian is better than a non-Christian, right? If anything, the Christian just understands how much they suck. The Christian chooses God's side against sin. The unbeliever chooses sin's side against God. That's the difference, and the most simple way possible is the unbeliever says, I construct my own God myself, and I'm gonna have all these idols in my life, and I'm gonna choose those things. I'm gonna choose the things that God created instead of God Himself, and it's to their own dismay and to their own unrest and disharmony. And when we embrace our Creator, man, does it bring peace, understanding, love, and joy. Right, the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. When you start experiencing these fruits, you just know this philosophy is true, because when I was embracing the other philosophy, it didn't bring these fruits that we would expect to correspond with a philosophy that was true. So yeah, that was the main point. Is in my life, I've moved from preaching anarchy to preaching peaceful parenting and unschooling. And now I realize I was just trying to fix the branches and now I'll preach Christ crucified. And to some of you, that's going to be complete foolishness. Probably most of you, that'll be just gibberish and ridiculous nonsense. And I just urge you, is it really nonsense? Or do you just not want it to be true? Do you really not want to have a creator be completely Lord over your life? And what that means for your life is sin, right? What does that mean for what you might have to turn your back on? Are you willing to give those things up? And I just urge you, the thing that you're gaining is so much infinitely better than the things you'll be losing, that he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain which he cannot lose. So just I urge you to to consider the things that you're in love with, and really, in the big picture, the big scheme of things, are they worth it? And then I just want to make a point that I'm a teacher out of school, so although I do love unschooling, the real issues that I was having, again, it was Christ-centered or not Christ-centered. That was the heart of the problem. And I found that in my school, all the kids love school. They love being there. They love learning. They support each other. It's cool to be smart at my school. So when I started to, I worked there last year, and I started to realize, man, Veritas, that's the name of the school, Veritas. There's something different about this place. What's going on? And what was going on was Jesus, right? And that was the difference. So I think you can have kids happy in public school. You can have kids happy in private schools, in Waldorf schools, and Montessori schools, and you name it. You can have kids happy there, and not only happy, but healthy and thriving and learning and growing. But again, the way for real health and real growth is to start with Jesus. And that starts at home, that starts with the parents, that starts with modeling that behavior from an early age. And so when I look around in the world and I see the Christian family, their true Christian family, in harmony with the world, that's probably a poor language to say, in harmony with their existence and their creator, right? That is such a powerful proof, and that is such a a thing that I want to share, because I think it sets people free. So I was also inspired to do this because I'm at a teaching conference right now. I'm around a bunch of educators who are really passionate. They love their kids, and it just got me thinking to, the last thing I released for the world to see was that public schooling was bad and unschooling was good. And I still think that my experience with unschoolers is really cool, and I still work with them all the time. And I may unschool my kids. I don't know. I think it's a really, really cool way to live. But the real thing that's happening, the real thing we need to address is Christ or no Christ. And when we have Christ in our homes in a real way, and Jesus is Lord over our life, that's when you have harmony in the family. That's when you have harmony with whatever education system and path you choose. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to check out Unschooling. I think it's really neat. I think as an educator, you can learn a ton about how we learn as individuals, and it can help you a lot. But more than anything, check out Jesus. Ask him to do a work in your life. If you're one of those who thinks, man, I can never believe this crazy fairy tale of a story, and it just seems all too crazy, because that was me for most of my life, just ask. But ask wholeheartedly. Don't ask, don't half it. Go all in and say, God, if you're real, help me to believe. Help me to understand. Show me your truth. I invite the Holy Spirit to do that work in your life, to change your heart, because nothing can convince you more that the path exists than being on the path, right? So I hope you enjoy. I really do welcome discussion. Tell me that I'm crazy. Tell me that I'm wrong. And share what's going on in your world. And thanks for watching. And I don't know when I'll make another video, but hopefully it'll be. I do want to do something about maybe my testimony and also what God's done in my life. So if I do make that video, I'll put a link right here. All right. God bless.